Pod. Welcome back to another episode of Say Who Say Pod. He's Danny O'Neil in the sports code. I'm Christian Caple. The Washington Huskies are 6-2. Danny, how does that hit you?
Yeah, I wrote down their record this morning as 5-2, and I went back and looked, and I'm like, no, that's 6-2. They've matched last season's win total.
A whole 6. Bowl eligibility. 6-2 after 42-25 win over Illinois. I need to go look and see if that's a scoregami. You don't see a lot of 42-25s out there.
No. 25 is certainly the more unusual number, but 42 is not all that common either.
No, especially in the Big Ten now.
Yeah.
Jed Fish has talked about this. You could tell he still is can't get over just how few plays and few possessions there are in these games. And I mean, how many Pac-12 games would you say Washington played in where you could say there was only one full possession they had where they didn't score a touchdown, yet their final score was 42?
It's a very skewed and different sort of looking league to that regard, but you see it in other places too. Like the Oregon-Wisconsin game was 21-7. And as someone who watched all of that game, it is a different style league. There is certainly that part of it. It is a different style league. And I think some of it is that there are certain teams who really just want to slow it down, where you never really had that in the Pac-12. Like, what was the team? And Mike Leach was famously like, he was never going to slow it down. Like, you have some other teams that are like, we are going to limit possessions in this game. This is how we're going to win it.
It was basically just Stanford. And every time when it was Stanford week, it was like, oh, God, Stanford. They're going to big play with fullbacks, and they use the whole play clock. And, oh, boy, here we go. And now that's kind of every week in the Big Ten. Although Kurt Cignetti in Indiana are over there, like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. We put up 56 on UCLA and 63 on Illinois. Of course, it helps when you could get pick sixes on the opening possession. And they, it's not like they're throwing the ball all over the yard. They have a really good quarterback, but, they kind of do it just by sheer force of will more than like trying to control pace.
I have really enjoyed hearing all of the people try to. Do we talk about Indiana as a power now? And in NIL, maybe you can. Like, is Indiana one of those blue blood programs now? Nobody knows quite what to make of them because everybody expected it to recede after last season, and then they look stronger than they did a year ago.
One entity that is also not receding, and I expect to look stronger a year from now than it does today, as they have every year since 1964.
Chuck Olson Kia.
Our good friends at Chuck Olson Kia in Shoreline, with a friendly, low-pressure sales staff and a competitively priced selection of vehicles. We hope you'll make Chuck Olson Kia your next destination for any vehicle buying needs. And if you do, you better find Henry Olson. You better ask for him. And if you talk to him, you better tell him Say Who Say Pod sent you.
We really appreciate their support and do absolutely hope that you patronize them.
Big shout out to Chuck Olson Kia, as always. This was a big one for Washington. I think it's kind of funny when the season ends up going to chalk based on what you thought preseason, because it basically never does. And certainly there's a whole third of the season left for it to deviate. But this is exactly where I thought Washington would be 8 games into this season. I thought they'd be 6-2 with losses to Ohio State and Michigan. I think a lot of people picked it that way. And I don't know anybody who projected Washington's 2025 season who did not have them beating Illinois, but it was very much the biggest kind of toss-up, right? Like, you could easily circle this as, hey, their odds of beating Ohio State are slim. Mm-hmm. Their odds of going to the Big House and beating Michigan, even if we're not sure really what Michigan's going to be, and I think that's kind of played out a little bit, their odds of winning that game in Ann Arbor are not great. That would be like a massive plus, right? That would almost be stealing one if they could win that game. But a preseason top 15, top 20 type Illinois team coming to Seattle off of a bye the week after Michigan, right before Washington's second bye. So like, they haven't had great rest in a while. That's going to be like the determiner, right? Can this be a 9-2 team going into the Oregon game, assuming they take care of business against Wisconsin, Purdue, and UCLA? Or are they going to be fighting for their lives against Oregon to be 9-3, and 8-4 is probably more their lot. So now they're in a position where all they have to do is not lose to a team that they are, I'm going to say, quite a bit better than in their next 3 games. And certainly circumstances can impact how those things go, right? Going to Madison, going on the road, playing a place you never been before. Both teams off a bye, so there's no rest advantage there. But, Wisconsin ain't good, but who knows, right? I don't see any way Purdue beats them in Seattle. But going to the Rose Bowl to play a UCLA team that has at least gotten itself off the mat, although maybe they're back on the mat after what happened in Bloomington on Saturday. Those are 3 games Washington should win. Those are 3 games that you should be extremely disappointed if they were to lose any one of them. And so you're talking about a situation now where you are extremely disappointed if this team is not 9-2 going into the Oregon game. And you got to think, if that's the case, you're playing for a playoff spot on Thanksgiving weekend. So a lot to happen between now and then. Does this Washington team get in with that kind of 10-2 record? If it came to that, maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves. But we talk about this from time to time, right? Like the beauty of the 12-team playoff era, 12 plus, it's going to be going forward here at some point. But the beauty of the 12-team playoff era is how many teams can play games in November feeling like they've still got a shot. I still kind of tend to think that based on their response at Michigan in a winnable game against a team that was a little bit better than them, but not way better than them. I still have questions about them rising in key moments against teams that might have a little bit of a talent edge. But hey, look at what they did against an Illinois team on Saturday that a lot of people thought was better than them before this season started.
This was a really good game. I don't want to say their best performance, but I thought that the way that they beat Illinois was really impressive. And I think the reason that I feel that way is because I thought Illinois' quarterback played pretty well. I thought Altmaier had a really good game, and
he's poised, man.
He took a lot of hits. I thought he made really good decisions, and the way that I looked at what Washington did so well was they blitzed him a ton, and they didn't give up big plays. So while Altmaier was able to not take sacks, which I do, and I always feel like I want to remind people, sacks is largely a quarterback statistic. They didn't burn him for big plays. I thought Washington played an excellent game, and the second half strength that this team has shown, how they've been better in the second half of so many games, is, I don't know if I have a great explanation for it, but I do think that is one of the more significant traits that I would point to on this team as the reason why I'm optimistic about this group of players going forward, is that they really do. They get better in games as it goes along. That has been the case. The one exception really being Michigan, and that was they got that game to the fourth quarter, and they didn't make the plays. They had some mistakes, and Michigan pulled away. But when you look at how Washington has played through the bulk of this season, they're a better team in the second half than they are in the first half, and I think that's great.
I think to that point, what was probably most discouraging if you're a Washington fan about the Michigan result was the lack of resiliency, right? That in a tie game, one thing goes wrong and now you're down, and it just snowballed, and there was no response. And I don't put that on any one player or any one side of the ball. It was kind of from the head coach on down, a falling flat in a big moment that this team hadn't really shown you yet. I wouldn't put Ohio State. I don't think Ohio State goes in the same category. This was the complete opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
This was every opportunity they had to be resilient and bounce back, they took it, starting from their opening drive, right? Illinois wins the toss, of course, defers, and Washington takes that first possession and puts together really an outstanding drive, threatened to be blown up by a holding penalty. but Damon Williams Jr. makes a Damon Williams Jr. play. Dezmen Roebuck makes a Dezmen Roebuck play, and they're in the end zone. There was a pass interference called against Tacario Davis in the end zone that aided.
I was really pissed when it happened. I think watching back, and you don't have a good angle to see it. They said it on the broadcast of like, oh, I can see how it's more defensible. Like, I thought it was an indefensible call. I don't feel that way anymore. I still don't think it should have been called, but that looked like absolute robbery.
Yeah, like if we're playing basketball and I've got you boxed out and I go to rebound and there's any amount of contact and I give the little like flail, like he got pushed in the back, boom, whistle, foul. Like to me that's what it felt like. Like it was pretty minimal, but like the receiver clearly was impacted in some way by the contact. I think what makes the flag really unfortunate is just like how bad the throw was.
It was it was up. And the other thing is he interfered with and it's almost like they're saying he shoved off to get to where the throw was, which that's not the mechanics of the play at all.
Yeah, it was kind of the opposite. They were both moving back toward it, and then he reacted and made a nice play to, the receiver was not going to be in a position to catch it. Look, I don't think that or the roughing call get the officials downgraded for calling it. In fact, I think like the more you look at the roughing call against Uiagalelei in the second half, you come in high and the quarterback's head snaps back a little bit. Like that one probably gets called most of the time. The interference call, I think, was tough.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was a penalty on Uiagalelei, wasn't it? Like do you think it shouldn't are there people who think that it shouldn't have been called?
Yeah, like the crowd was not happy with that one.
I know that they were mad about it, but if you look at it like that, I think it was the right call. I don't think it should have been targeting, but his head was high and he hit the quarterback high and his head snapped around. I generally like I don't have a beef with that call.
Yeah, I don't think it. I think it's just unfortunate that D lineman does his job, gets pressure on the quarterback that forces literally an interception, and because he's just got his head a little bit too high, it's a penalty.
I'm not sure if there's a coaching point there of here's what you shouldn't do here. Pereira was on there talking about targeting.
He was fine with it
on the call, and I thought the targeting part was dumb. It was not targeting. He didn't lower his helmet. Like there was no when they talk about the hairline, but it's a roughing the passer penalty.
Yeah, and they didn't even buzz down to review it for targeting. So the people there disagreed with Pereira, but
yeah, which they should. Although I've been told I give Pereira too hard a time.
Yeah, that's a huge swing, right? That interception gets wiped out. They're up 14-10, maybe thinking they can take possession here and take a 2-score lead into halftime. Instead, it's an Illinois touchdown, and they're in the lead with 1:55 left. And that's kind of that's a curl up into a ball opportunity for a team that is not resilient. And instead, they just put together a touchdown drive. They just go score, take the lead before halftime, force a rare punt in this game on Illinois' first possession of the second half, punch in another touchdown, and it's a 2-score lead the rest of the game. So very impressive response, I thought, at the end of the first half there.
I have one confession to make. There was a point in the first half where I thought to myself and then said out loud, are we sure that Jonah Coleman is Washington's best running back? I no longer think that. Early in the third quarter, we're reminded like, oh yeah, like the 29-yard run he ripped off. But there was a point in the first half where I'm like, I don't know. I think I might want to see more Muhammad. I think I might want to see more Muhammad from him on the ground.
See, I believe that was a reference to Adam Muhammad, but I'm like, you could be talking about Damon Williams Jr. too.
Oh yeah, this was back to sort of the devastating game-changing scrambles. If there were points in the Maryland game, like his legs make such a difference.
At what point do you accept that he's just not going to slide when confronted?
I have accepted it. I've made my peace with it. I'm okay with it. I'm no longer like saying, "Oh, don't hit it." I mean, this game he hit. Well, he trucked a safety and then hit back-to-back spin moves. The last one he was out of bounds on. Yeah, like, but that was a full-on truck stick B maneuver there. I'd prefer to not see the spins into the center of the field, but I'm down with everything else. I'm no longer yelling for him to slide.
It's funny because like I'm not saying Damon's like not strong or like doesn't pack a punch as a runner when he lowers his shoulder, but I think a lot of it is like, man, I don't care how big or stout you are as a defender. I don't want to approach from a standstill a guy moving that fast coming right. He's so fast. He builds up so much momentum that like I understand why he thinks his best course of action. And like I think that contact occurred in like 1 yard beyond the line to gain. So it really was, and Fish kind of mentioned this, it really was it would have been a tough spot to slide because you come up short if you do that. And it's bang bang, and you know you're not looking to see where the yard marker is, you know, a second and a half before you have a collision on a football field. And you know, Fish kind of mentioned after, like, yeah, like I still would rather not see that. Like he, you know, I need to do, and he's said this before too, like I need to do a better job communicating to Damon before like third down plays that, hey, you know, we can go for it on fourth down. You know, we can, if you get us to 4th and 3, 4th and 2, like we'll go for it. Don't feel like you got to put your body at risk to go get it. But it, to me, at this point, it's a balance of like, how much do you want your face of the franchise to preserve his body and minimize hits? And how much do you like that he's a dog? You know, that he doesn't have that switch in his mind. He's not going to be that guy. He's going to lower his shoulder. He's going to fight for contact. He's going to fight for yards. He's going to always try to make a play. And there's going to be some negatives come out of that. There's no doubt. But you'd kind of rather have it that way than the other way, right?
For sure. And I also think it's a question of there's maybe with more experience, it does change for him and either things slow down or the decision making. But what you just said is that these are decisions that are being made in the moment. And how does he avoid that hit? The one where he trucks the safety? Well, that's something he's got to, by the time he's thinking about it, it's too late to make it. He's not able, the way he plays the game is not conducive to that right now. And I've accepted that. It's his body. It's I think that the benefits that you get from the way he plays vastly outweigh any of the negatives we've seen so far. And it might not be something he can moderate. Look, Johnny Manziel won a Heisman Trophy playing that way and played his entire college career without suffering any sort of devastating injury. And if we're going to be honest, that's not the reason he flamed out in the NFL either. So I think it's different in the NFL than it is in college football. And I am no longer of the point of you've got to slide. I'll see what he does. I just maybe not the spin moves. I think the spin move is something that you can generally take out of the arsenal, but yeah, he's incredible to watch.
I'd never been under the impression that Damon Williams Jr. was like mentally fragile or anything as far as is a bad performance going to impact him going forward. But this game certainly was confirmation of that, right? I mean, he seemed to, and Jed Fish talked about that, right? Like he's like, I think he'd moved on by the time he got on the plane coming home from Michigan. Which is, you know, there is some, for a sophomore quarterback who that was really the first time he'd ever played poorly. I think Ohio State contained him very much so. Oregon sacked him 10 times last year. He threw a pick 6 in the first quarter against Louisville in the Sun Bowl. But in none of those games would you say like he didn't play well. I think that against Ohio State, Washington's offense met its match and then some physically. But you wouldn't say like, oh, this was a bad game by Damon Williams Jr. Whereas, you know, the final 16 and a half minutes against Michigan, like it was just rough, right? He just threw some picks. And he's such a competitor that he gets, you could tell he's so crushed in the moment when he doesn't play well, when they don't win. I think that's probably more what it was about, just that they felt like that was a football game they could win and his team didn't win. Kind of saw that in the Sun Bowl too, right? I mean, he played as well in that game as anyone could have expected, but was, here they are at the end of a 6-6 season, kind of forgettable year, forgettable game, but not for him, right? I mean, he was devastated, right? You saw him on the sideline at the end of that game with towel over his head, and a little bit of that same reaction coming off Michigan. So you could tell it means a ton to him. So to hold that feeling simultaneously while being the kind of guy who can like, okay, but it's over and now there's another game and let's get ready to play, and then go out and throw 4 touchdown passes and put up 60 some rushing yards and turn 3rd and 18 into a truck stick highlight. He's a special player, so if there was any doubt that he'd be moving on from a bad performance, he flushed that, I think, after their first scoring drive.
The game at Maryland, when he had the interception where it looked like he overthrew, but probably wasn't on the same page with Boston, the first pick. And then I did wonder the rest of that first half if he was not, is it tentative? That he was leery about making another mistake. Because I don't want to say that he was like shell shocked or anything like that, but that he didn't trust himself as much as he had prior to that. But that definitely was changed in the second half. And in this game, you saw absolutely no sort of hangover from what happened at the end of the Michigan game. Like this was, I think Damon Williams, like his physical traits, like his running ability, his ability to improvise, to throw on the run, which you saw in that game, the touchdown to Roebuck where he rolled out to his left. He's an incredibly accurate passer. Like and he was clearly letting it rip. And I think he's also got, I think his confidence in Roebuck and Vinesbright, I think you can see that growing over the course of the season. And then it's been there with Boston.
4 pressures in this game for Illinois. And they didn't bring a whole lot. This was a lot of, I want to say like 3 and 4 man rushes with coverage. And Fish mentioned that. That kind of seems to be a theme. Do you think that's kind of a football wide thing at this point, right? Like, wasn't that a whole thing in the NFL last year? So much like too high safety,
yes,
and kind of baiting the run, and teams are pivoting back to running the ball because explosive passing is down, or at least going to be tougher. Like it kind of seems like that's the trend.
Well, there certainly has been as quarterbacks have gotten more mobile in the NFL, you have seen teams become more reluctant to blitz, or the way that they blitz has changed, and there's been more of an emphasis on contain, that you really can't. And Damon Williams would fall very much into that category. If you are going to blitz him, you absolutely, you don't want one person going in and taking a run at him, because if he escapes that and the play breaks down, then everything is screwed up. If he gets away, what's called the mush rush, kind of where you've got a general, like you want to slowly compress the pocket without anybody breaking contain. But the too high safety is certainly something. And what it is it's basically a bet that you're not going to be able to consistently execute in front of us. We're going to wait for you to make a mistake. We will take the 5 yards and a headache on every play. You're going to catch it and you'll keep making first downs, but we're going to make you pay for it. And eventually you're going to make a mistake, and daring teams to get, if you can run us out of cover 2, then that's the way to do it. The lack of a blitz was interesting. I think they were betting on Williams. It was a bet that Williams was going to give him some opportunities at picks.
Yeah, and it seemed like every time he dropped a throw, you could tell right away he's got all day. He's going to have all day, and it just seems like that is not going to go well for the defense. Ohio State could do the mush rush thing and push the pocket because they're Ohio State. They have dominant athletes up front. I don't know if Illinois felt like based on what Washington's O-line had put on tape the last few weeks, that they could get home enough to impact the pocket, and then Carver Willis and John Mills come back, and it's a much different picture. I mean, I pointed out in my day after story, like, you watch John Mills on that first touchdown pass to Roebuck, and Illinois only brings 4, so he's left without a guy to block, and so just wanders over and shoves the guy Carver Willis is blocking to the ground, and kind of created a little bit of an escape lane for Damon Williams was not like under duress necessarily, but nobody was open, and he was kind of getting flushed, and that created the room for him to move left, find Dezmen Roebuck, and then Roebuck makes a good play to make a couple guys miss and get himself across the goal line. He's still pretty good.
Demond or Dezmen Roebuck? Both. They're
Well,
both.
I'd say both, but I was talking about Roebuck.
Yeah, Roebuck's that I thought Jake Butt did a good job on that play of pointing out the benefits of the unscripted play, where when you can extend a play like that, where you kind of get a second shot, you get a chance to see if the play happens as scripted, and then when you don't, that was one of the things that with Russell Wilson and the Seahawks that they were so good at, which was essentially you get 2 shots at it. Does the original play work? And then if not, make a second play. Russell was not as decisive in throwing the ball as Damon Williams is. Like, Damon Williams definitely throws it. He'll go through his reads and then take the check down, even at this point now more than Russell would when Russell was with the Seahawks. But that ability to not get impatient and to let a play develop and then take and see what happens after the play is, I mean, it's really hard for defenses.
Roebuck's kind of already in the territory where, like, on that second touchdown catch, if it's one of those tightrope situations, you almost don't even need to check the monitor. Like, you could be pretty confident he's getting a foot down. He actually got 2 feet down.
Got 2 feet down.
Yeah.
Like, he got the initial foot down and then dragged the second foot. It's wild that he's a true freshman.
Is there an easy comparison for him? I like the first name, and it's so easy and lazy because it's like local or whatever. But like, is he like Doug Baldwin? Are their games similar?
Roebuck looks bigger. It was Doug's footwork, and especially what he was able to do in routes.
Such a violent route runner.
Yeah. I can see that. A little bit. It's wild to me how polished he is. And then the fact that not only is he a true freshman, but he didn't do the arrive after in winter quarter last year. So yeah, I'll think on that. I don't have a great one for you right now.
The fact he's playing outside too.
Yeah, because that would be the thing of, and people, that question about Doug Baldwin early in his career, Baldwin was seen as a slot guy, and some of that is because of his feet and combination size. Roebuck's more physical. Like, that part is very clear. The hits he took, I mean, that was 3 defenders on that first touchdown. There were 3 defenders right there, and he basically spun through, worked through 2 of them. So while I wouldn't describe Roebuck as big, like, he's already a pretty physical receiver, which separates him from most of the guys that get grouped in there with the great feet, kind of because that typically means somebody that's not as physical or able to use their body to shield off defenders. But I think Roebuck's pretty physical in that regard too.
Yeah, like, if you were making kind of the ideal receiver and you said, like, take elite size and take elite speed off the table.
Yeah.
What does he have to be? He's all of the things that he would have to be, right? Like, he's an extremely polished, mature route runner for his age. He has unbelievable hands, right? He catches everything. He tracks the ball in a way that not a lot of guys do, freshmen or not. His body control is unbelievable. His spatial awareness is next level. He kind of has everything you'd want if you take away the primo physical traits that would make somebody a top 100 or 5-star prospect.
I think the two guys I give you, and I think the one I think Lad McConkey might be, because McConkey's a really good athlete. Because that's the thing about, if we're not talking about Roebuck's athleticism, it's really just a top end speed thing.
Yeah, he's clearly a great athlete.
He's clearly a phenomenal athlete and really strong dude. Yeah, I might for now, that's the one I'm going to settle on.
And McConkey's a good example too of like an elite program taking a guy because they know he's an elite prospect, and not falling into the trap of like every receiver we take needs to be a blue chipper, and not being a fallback guy, right? Like prioritizing this 3-star recruit, even though you're Georgia, because you know how good he is, and for no other reason.
Yeah,
Which I think Washington did with Roebuck, and which obviously Fish was going to do with Roebuck at Arizona. I mean, you think about the type of players that are offered scholarships when they're freshmen in high school. Like I don't know how many guys get their first Power 4 offer as a freshman in high school and then get no more. Like it blows my mind, and we don't need to go down that road for the 500th time on this podcast. But it's just his whole recruitment just is fascinating to me. I don't know that I've ever heard of another prospect who had the high school production he did, who gets his first offer from the hometown school as a freshman in high school and then just like no more come. It's strange.
It is very weird, if only because I think a lot of recruiting ends up being, oh, they offered you, we'll offer you. Like that, and there's some security that comes with like, oh, we can't be the only ones seeing this, or maybe they see something we don't. Like, it's definitely unusual in that regard, because I think that they move in packs.
Speaking of the defensive front not getting a ton of pressure on its own, that was Washington again. I think that's just kind of what this defensive front is at this point.
No, it is funny that Ryan Walters, though, is going to be, we're going to get pressure one way or another.
Yeah, he sent some. I think they blitzed Altmaier 12 times, something like that. That's what PFF had. Not super effective every time at like forcing a negative play. There were two in particular where they got home and he got hit and he just got the ball out and a receiver made a play. There was like a 3rd and 3 they converted with a short pass where I was just like, man, I don't know how many Power 4 quarterbacks even get that ball out and get it on time and on target to a receiver. Like that was just a hell of a play. And he had 2 of those. But then also, he threw 2 interceptions, one of which was on target to a receiver, and Zadrius Rainey-Saleh, who had a great game, by the way, seems to be coming along just fine. Made a nice hit, and Takario Davis gets the rebound. And then just not a good throw when Rashawn Clark picked him off. But it's the fourth quarter, and you're down 3 scores, and you're trying to make something happen. Like you gotta try to make a play there. And obviously, I think made a mistake on the interception that got wiped out by the interference call, and give Tai Uyunglele credit for getting some pressure on the quarterback and forcing literally again an interception, and unfortunately they get hit with a penalty there. So there was some activity in the backfield, but Luke Altmaier had been sacked 23 times in the Illini's first 7 games. That's one of the worst marks in the country, certainly in the Big Ten. This has not been an offensive line that has protected the quarterback. And so for him to throw as often as he did, and it wasn't like a crazy number of dropbacks relative to what the score was, but especially to have them in situations where you feel like they got to throw and you can maybe get some pressure, to not actually sack him a single time, I think is pretty disappointing. This team ranks 133rd in FBS and tackles for loss per game. They had 2 in this game, both for a loss of a yard, both in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, there just is not a lot of activity on the other side of the line of scrimmage at this point. Now, if you're playing complementary football and your offense is scoring on 6 of 7 possessions, scoring touchdowns on 6 of 7 possessions, scoring 42 points, moving the ball and scoring, is it the most important thing to try to get real creative to create some explosives defensively? Is it the most important thing to try to send 6 guys after the quarterback to get a sack? Or do you just want to play, keep it in front of you, don't give up, don't let them right back in this with one play, make them go down the field because you have confidence in your offense to keep putting the pressure on them? And
Now,
you can have it both ways, right? Like you want to get to a point where you've got athletes up front where you don't have to worry about that. You can get pressure with 4. You can live in a world where Vita Vea, Greg Gaines, and Elijah Qualls are all on the same defensive line. And, you can get after Luke Falk and Gardner Minshew in the Apple Cup and drop 7 or 8 guys into coverage. But that's just not where they're at personnel-wise right now.
and the way this game played out, they didn't give up big plays when they blitzed. Like my answer to your question is that you call Washington's defense needs to be predicated and measured on stopping big plays as opposed to sort of the disruptive tackles for loss, because they don't have the ability to get those. And for whether that is a question of defensive line strength, they haven't had a lot of continuity at middle linebacker. When you look at Rainey Saleh is playing now, Jacob Manu has played some. Alukta was playing a lot earlier and was kind of the main guy. Devin Bryant is someone that you're counting along there. That they haven't had a lot of continuity at their middle linebacker spot, and they just haven't been able to generate pressure from their defensive line. I think that in watching them play this game, the biggest measurement is are they getting beat for big plays, either on the ground or in the pass game? And the answer was they did blitz quite a bit and they didn't get home, but it didn't result in huge gains either. And that part of Washington's defense, like I think that's the part that you're measuring it on, is you don't want to give up big plays. You have a potent offense. You have the priority should be, okay, we don't want to put them in a situation where you have to go score for score. We want to, if we holding someone to a field goal instead of giving up a touchdown, that's a win for our unit. Being able to make a team progress the ball down the field and work for every yard of it, like that's what we're primarily, that's going to be successful for us, because there is nothing about this defense that has shown you yet that they are going to be a unit that can disrupt or create opportunities for the offense.
Yeah, you do see, and I'm going to use this as a means of pivoting a bit, and I might write about this at some point, but you see enough like young talent, right? You see Rashawn Clark affecting the football. You see, he's a junior, but Alex McLaughlin, another big hit on the sideline, playing physical. Zadrius Rainey Saleh looks like he can do a lot of things in a lot of different phases, right? You saw him drop into coverage. He'd probably like to have that first pass breakup back, dropped interception, but he's there to make a play, right? And you just see the size, you see the athleticism. He's
going to be
healthy, all that. He's going to be a big time player. Rylan Dillard Allen.
Yep.
I believe that was his first 15-yard penalty of the season, which it probably hits the over for how long that was going to take. Had, I think, a pretty impressive tackle and run support on a play. Fast, physical, violent, fearless. And we talked about Roebuck. We talked about Damon Williams Jr. You know all about John Mills. You know all about Raiden Vines-Bright. You're waiting on Adam Mohammed. There's a lot of young talent in this program and some guys that they feel really good about in the 2026 class. And I think this game, more than any, makes you feel like it's really important as you look around what's happening around the country in the coaching carousel this year, for Washington to do whatever it can within reason to sit this one out and to let the dominoes fall however they're going to fall in ways that no one can predict right now, with LSU and Florida and Penn State and UCLA, I guess, and whoever else might come open. and keep their coach, maintain stability, and give this young roster a chance to stay together and have the 2026 season. I think people have probably been thinking about for a little while now, just based on the progression of these guys' careers and where guys are going to be at, and how much better Damon Williams Jr. can be as a junior, and Roebuck and Vines Bright and Mills as sophomores, and so on and so forth. Um, they've got the roster clearly headed in the right direction. They need to go in the portal and try to find a difference maker or two on the interior D line. They're probably going to need another, I'm going to say one more offensive lineman from the portal, depending on what they do positionally with John Mills and some other things, but at least one there. You're still looking for some difference makers on defense, I think, but I also think that you have a couple in the program who are pretty young, and are going to get better, and are going to step into big roles next year. But it's kind of pointless to speculate about all that until you know that you've got some coaching stability. And maybe, look, maybe that's not fair. Maybe it's not fair to say that like this is a concern until it's not, when Jed Fish hasn't said anything necessarily to make you think that. Not that he would, or any coach would, but you know what his track record is. He came to Washington with really things kind of pointing all the way up at Arizona too, right? And so it's anytime you're a school like Washington that's kind of in that, whether you want to say it's like the bottom of tier 2 or the top of tier 3 or whatever, when it comes to however you want to rank like best jobs, it's a good job, right? But you saw that when Alabama comes calling, it's probably kind of a no-brainer that the head coach at Washington is going to take the job at Alabama, just like it's probably a no-brainer that the head coach at Arizona is going to take the job at Washington, like Jed Fish did. And so you see multiple jobs open that probably eat first. And you could parse like in the same sense that like I think Kurt Cignetti is very wise to stay at Indiana. Like, I don't know that Penn State is a better enough job than Indiana. Yes, it's better in all the obvious ways, but I don't like anymore. I don't know that like the upside offered to you at Penn State is so different than the upside offered to you at Indiana that you would leave a good thing to go try to work there. Maybe you could apply that same argument to an opportunity at a school like Florida relative to Washington. I don't know. I just know that like, I don't necessarily know if Jed Fish had done enough to convince Washington to like be leveraged or give him a new contract or be proactive about giving him a raise or trying to lock him down, so to speak. But I do think he's got the program pointed in the right direction. I do think they've put together a pretty exciting young roster. And I think with all the openings now around the country, with how much like instability there's going to be at the top of the sport, not everywhere, but at certain programs, how much different there's going to be across college football as Washington is still transitioning into the Big Ten, as Washington is still like building its program in a 12-team playoff era and all these things. I just think it would greatly behoove Washington to not have to deal with that instability this year. While, I think if you've got your head coach heading into year 3 with a star junior quarterback with a ton of experience now under his belt, as he will have going into 2026, I think you would look around and say that like you have a leg up on a lot of other schools just by having that. I think like if Pat Chun in Washington could look back at the 2025 hiring cycle and say, boy, was it nice to not have to be part of that. I think that would be a big win.
So I was actually writing about this morning. I'm not as anxious or nervous about this as I probably should be, given the level of interest that I have in the University of Washington about what's going to happen with Jed Fish. And one, I think that actually, in the bigger picture, might point to a problem in the sport in general, because I'm the kind of moron that this sport has typically depended on or generally relied upon. I'm the kind of idiot that kept buying season tickets even after I moved out of Seattle. I'm someone who has complained about Adidas not offering enough products in since they got the UW contract to like, because I want to buy more stuff. I'm one of the idiots that goes to bowl games, like that sort of thing. I would be generally, I would be your sort of primary kind of fan demographic. And I'm not sure that I am anymore because I'm not all that interested in sort of contributing to NIL. And I'm not saying these as any sort of like I'm right or I'm wrong. And I realize that people might have opinions about that. Well, if you're going to be a fan today, you have to do those sort of things. But I've also taken the approach and kind of thought about it that I don't think I'm going to agonize over every turn of the screw or quarter turn of the screw in this hiring cycle. I recognize Jed Fish is someone who has been aggressively upwardly mobile. And I say that without criticism, just as an observation. I can see how some of the programs that have already opened would be really attractive to him. I honestly don't know if would Florida hire him. Like maybe they strike out enough. I also could see a world where hiring a guy who's had 1 10-win season at Arizona isn't enough to move their alumni. They probably see themselves as a higher caliber program. But I don't know. Like ultimately, and I definitely feel that, especially with how early this is starting, Penn State and LSU were both top 10 teams when the season started. Florida was ranked. All 3 of those jobs are now open. You have 2 jobs in the Big Ten and 2 jobs in the SEC that are already open, and it's not November. This, whether it is because there were not as many coaching changes last season as some people thought, whether it is the influx of new media rights money that's come, whether it is the uncertainty about, I think we're entering, I think kind of all bets are off at this point. Nobody knows what's going to happen. And I've kind of just decided that I'm not going to spend energy trying to anticipate a picture that I don't even think the people principally involved know how it's going to develop.
Yeah, I do think that Kalen DeBoer's departure almost like like lobotomized the fan base when it comes to how they might react to the coach leaving.
Yeah, which is interesting because when they hired DeBoer was at, I hate market rate or that idea, but DeBoer's coaching contract with UW was not comparable to what Fish's coaching contract is with UW when you talk about how he's paid among his peers. Like Kalen DeBoer was hired with a contract that they fully expected to be redone or hoped would be redone pretty quickly. The different things that and what preceded him in the situation with Jimmy Lake, obviously, the Jed's in a much different situation than Kalen DeBoer was after his first and second seasons.
And I do think like it's probably different if the interest is coming from one of those big jobs you mentioned than, just UCLA. Washington's financial situation is what it is. It's not great. But I don't think that's ever stopped them from making an investment in football that they feel like they need to make and paying your head coach. Like I think if a new deal for Jed Fish were sufficient to keep him at Washington, I think that Washington is in a position now or like getting closer to one. And again, like let's talk again in 3 or 4 weeks and see if they win all 3 of these games, right? I mean, God, people's attitudes on these things seem to change by the week. But I think it would very much behoove them to sit this one out. And I'm one who's probably fallen more into the mindset, generally speaking, of there will always be another coach. They can always find another coach. Like, and you might, maybe you flip the argument and say, well, look, would it be the worst thing to be the, one of 8, whatever it ends up being, right? One of however many Power 4 programs that have to hire a new coach. Would it be the worst thing to start from scratch at the same time as all these other programs, right? Like, would that be the end of the world? I think you'd rather not.
Here's the answer to that, and it's what you started this with. It would be it would be bad because of what you have coming back next year. And that's really what it's tied to. I really want Jed Fish to be back for next season because I really want this offense with Damon Williams to be back because I really want to see if you pair them with what I think will be a greatly improved defense next year, what that looks like.
Yeah, I think that's what it boils down to. It's you need to as I've quoted more than once on this show, deserve got nothing to do with it.
Snoop.
Right. And it's not even a judgment on like, does he or does he not deserve a new contract or a raise? I'm just saying it's irrelevant, right? Like has he earned it or whatever? That's got nothing to do with it. You got to set that aside. It's what is the cost of doing business for Washington? And if the cost of doing business is get the head coach a new deal so that you can roll into 2026 in year 3 of a coaching regime with a roster that looks like it, and some other programs are, because Florida, LSU, Penn State, maybe they go first time head coach, current OC or DC route, but likely they're probably looking to hire a sitting head coach. If Lane Kiffin leaves for LSU or for Florida, for example, well, now Ole Miss is open and they're got to hire somebody. And what if they hire a sitting head coach? So like, how many programs, right? Is this going to be a Nick Saban like domino effect? I don't know, but these aren't the last probably Power 4 head coaching jobs or FBS head coaching jobs that are going to come open this cycle. So to be a school that is in year 3 in a year when that many head coaches change seats with the associated personnel, I think would be a huge advantage.
One thing I will say, Christian, is do not suggest that Steve Sarkisian has let NFL teams know he's open to their offers for the 2026 season.
Are you sufficiently convinced by Jimmy Sexton's statement? It was on letterhead, so I think it's pretty legit.
I'll say this. That made me more the fact that announcement came out from them made me more. I do think it's more likely that he's not going anywhere.
Because they don't do that.
No,
that does not happen.
Now, it doesn't mean it won't happen because Nick Saban got in front of microphones when he was the Miami coach and said, you won't need me to say that I won't be the coach of Alabama. I won't be the coach of Alabama. So I'm not saying it won't happen, but that did actually, if he had just made the statement he made after the game, I would have said like, yeah, right. I was a little, the statement, the press release did do something for me.
If Lincoln Riley had any sense of humor, he would get up at his next press conference and say, listen, guys, I'm not going to be the next head coach at LSU. That
would be very funny. There's no way that Lincoln Riley has the ability to do that right now.
Yeah, he's not really in a position to crack jokes. So did you get a little bit of like Mike Gundy, I'm a man, I'm 40 vibes from Sark's post-game rant about it?
Yes.
It was not nearly as impassioned or like angry, but he was pretty pissed off.
But it was also in the same way it was posturing. Like there is a same level of posturing. I think Sark knows that, right, there's going to be some tough talk about him after this season. I don't think he believes that, and maybe he truly does want to stay at Texas. Like that is like what his heart's desire is. But I also, there was a little bit of, I legitimately think that he has not communicated that. And he resented that he was being dragged into it at this point because he's like, look, dude, I've got a lot of fires I'm putting out right now. And I don't need to be fighting that one when I actually, now it doesn't mean I don't want to or wouldn't entertain it, but I never said that right now.
I love that he captured this teeny tiny little Venn diagram space where Steve Sarkisian's feelings about frustrations with the media overlapped with the media's frustrations about the media when he was talking about like, and what really drives me, I'm paraphrasing here, but like what really drives me nuts is that one report goes out and then everybody just takes it and republishes it and treats it as facts. And it's like, yes, I'm here for Steve Sarkisian railing against sports media aggregation culture. Like I'm fine. And to be fair, like Diana Rossini is a legitimate reporter.
Yes.
Credible, right?
Who covers a different league. Yeah, she covers the NFL. So it's very likely that's what someone told her in the NFL. But in the college football culture, it's like, I will say I agree with Steve Sarkisian about that. I also think it's very telling the people that jumped up and down to carry the denial without ever acknowledging the initial report, aka Pete Thamel. Like the people that are like, "Oh, this was never said," because it's really easy. There is nothing easier than to carry water and get bonus points from a coach by helping him extinguish a different rumor.
Yes. And so I say all that to say, like, if you're going to aggregate a report from a national reporter, like taking something that Rossini reported and, tagging the report colon and aggregating it is not the craziest thing, right? Like, that's generally like a fairly credible source. Clearly, it's not, obviously someone told her that. She didn't make it up. She's not trying to cause problems. But the general practice of one report becomes 200 headlines everywhere and gets rewritten, and that's a sort of an annoying like aspect of our industry. So I do laugh at Steve Sarkisian actually kind of like hitting the nail on the head with that one.
Yeah, because it is. Because what Rossini said is NFL, what I took it as, NFL people think that Steve Sarkisian could be in play after this season for a potential head coaching job, specifically Tennessee. Like that very well could be true. And the way it gets aggregated is Sarkisian is looking to get out of Texas. And those are two completely different conclusions. And that's where the game of telephone gets twisted. And the other thing is Sarkisian's like, dude, we haven't even gotten to that part yet. Like, I'm still fighting for my freaking life here with Arch Manning. We barely won. Can I just get another week?
I love seeing the Jimmy Sexton and the other guy with their names on a press release saying this didn't happen. Like, and hey, credit to them for having the idea of like, what would be really like, what would really resound here is if we did this, because we don't ever do this. So like this would be way better than just like leaking it to whoever to report via sources that it's not true. Like, what if we put our name on the letterhead? Give him props for that. I think it was a pretty solid PR move.
The way things shape in this world.
We recorded. I think this will publish Tuesday. I don't think I'm going to get to it today because I got to head up to Seattle here in a minute for Jed Fish's Monday press conference. But we're recording this on Monday. We usually record on Wednesdays. Danny's heading out of town. Also explains why there is no Ian question this week. Did not give Ian a heads up. So apologies to IP and all those who love him so much. Enjoy the bye week. Enjoy a Saturday of football, man.
Yeah. Kick back, watch it. We'll be back. Get cracking for the home stretch of the season.
Yes, sir. We'll talk to you next week.